So it got recorded, and I'll pause the recording.
And this is Kaya. I'm on, it wouldn't let me in on the computer, so I'm on the phone.
That's why I don't see your name. Okay, great. So very, very quickly, as you know, we are still living in a COVID world, even though the current public health crisis only, per the executive order, only goes till the 30th of September. That includes the provision or section 3610 of the CARES Act, and that provision that covered a lot of our companies' workforces and the workforce expenses they had, et cetera. So Kay will talk a little bit to this, but we continue to advocate for the extension of 3610 and, importantly, the funding. And the bottom line is that right now, all of these various bills, except for the continuing resolution, which we expect to be voted on by the Senate here shortly, are hostage to the current political climate and the election. So I don't expect to see any real activity over the next month on any of that. And again, I'll leave it to Kaya to talk more on that. That said, we have been extremely active on a certain provision that was in the legislation just prior to the CARES Act, and this is Section 4003 that included $17 billion for companies that work in national security. These were supposed to be loans, and they are severely undersubscribed. Only about 700 million of that 17 billion was ever applied for and approved. So there remains $16.3 billion in that fund that are not being utilized. So we have advocated here at National for two things to be done with that money. One is to fund 3610 because there has been no appropriations for 3610, and request for equitable adjustment because the costs of being on contract in FY21 are higher than originally thought, and there's no current appropriations for that. So we want that money there so contracting officers have a source of funding to approve requests for equitable adjustment and requests for compensation under 3610. The other thing that we've been looking at with that money, and this is per a lot of activity in NDIA's small business division, is the repurposing of some of those funds to plus up the SBIR program, specifically follow on phase 2 and phase 3 SBIRs, so we can do two things. One is to ensure that those small innovative companies that are operating in the defense industrial base are supported and can make it through this crisis, while we also importantly invest in future warfighter capabilities. So we see this as a win-win for our companies and the taxpayers, as opposed to paying for a workforce to be idled but still ready, which is important. This instead puts that workforce, that small business workforce, to work, creating new capabilities for the warfighter. And these companies are already vetted. Their technologies are already, there's already a demand signal for them from the services. And so we see this as a good deal. Kaya will talk more to this, but I can tell you that there's a lot of interest in this across the small business community, and importantly on Capitol Hill. Other things that are going on, I'm sure many of you saw that there was a kerfuffle yesterday on a Washington Post article on Defense Production Act usage, and that was specifically a $1 billion that around 700 million of it was used to shore up parts of the defense industrial base supply chain. That's getting a lot of play here in Washington, D.C. I've been interviewed now 3 times on this topic. I will say there's a lot of heat and light, but I don't know that at the end of the day, there's going to be much of a policy change that comes out from that, but we will see. the rest of the stuff that's going on, again, I point to the fact that we are living in a COVID world and an election world. And because of those, a lot of movement policy-wise in Washington, D.C. is essentially seized up and will only move forward post-election. Other than that, I will turn it over to Kaya to talk about the things that we have I've already mentioned, and then also importantly, the continuing resolution, which right now looks like it's going to go through the 11th of December, and all bets are off of what happens after that, and it'll all depend on the election. So over to you, Kaya.
Thanks, Wes. As you mentioned, we are looking at the CR. Last night, the House overwhelmingly to extend federal funding through December 11th. Looks like the Senate will be voting this week still. We're watching whether it's going to be tonight or tomorrow. They did include in that the most relevant for defense related is the CARES Act 3610 extension. So that will go through December 11th. And this is something that NDIA has been working for. We sent a multi-association led letter that asked for it to go through 2021, but since there's going to be a CR, they're only doing it through that date in 2020. But we will continue to watch that. Unfortunately, there are no appropriations attached to that. So just like in the CARES Act, we had the authorization with no money for it. The only appropriations it looks like that are included in the CR are $8 billion for fighting food insecurity. So it didn't touch much on industry. It's really just feeding people. The other defense related one is the authorization for Columbia class the subs, which we know that the Navy's been pushing hard for. So that's relevant for you all down in San Diego as well. We are, as Wes said, the Section 4003 that we're still pushing for. There is nothing in the CR for that, but we are hoping that that will come out either as a standalone or be attached to the NDAA, or if there's another COVID package. We do have legislative text. We have actually gotten a sponsor, which is great. They're working on getting a co-sponsor across the aisle for us, but we have seen they've attached a legislative counsel to it. We have the text, we've looked at it, so we were able to see the information paper that essentially we drafted with a small business division and sent it over to DOD, and we're able to get out there and have done some stories in the media with, got the attention of the Hill. And so we're very excited to see that moving forward and having bipartisan support. We're also working with getting our Defense Industrial Base caucus moving, which will include some good ties for our small businesses as well. We are not seeing much movement as far as a new COVID relief bill. The NDAA was supposed to go to conference, but we're hearing now that there aren't going to be any conferees until after the election. Senator Thune just said that folks could leave town after voting on the CR and come back for the Supreme Court hearings, or if another COVID relief bill goes to the floor. So right now we're watching all of the movement, but with the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, it looks like all the air has sort of been sucked out of the room for getting any other business done beyond just making sure that we don't go into a shutdown. On the NDAA, we put together, along with it's called the Acquisition Reform Working Group. It is led by NDIA and ITI, and it's comprised of a number of other associations related to industry. And we went through all of the NDAA provisions that are relevant to us. So all of you know, for 889, the only provision that's in there currently was from Rep. Hertzler. She put it out before the rule had even come out, so it's not super helpful. What we put out is that we support with modification, and that modification we're asking for is suspension of the implementation and pushing it out a year so that companies have more time to figure out what exactly is in their system and move forward that way. Otherwise, the big focus is also on printed circuit boards and then some MOSA stuff. So we're tracking everything in there. We put together some good supports, and then we also oppose the things that we would think would be harmful to industry. That will be going out probably tomorrow. But again, if they're not going to be in conference until after the election, we'll see what they do. They're trying to keep the NDAA pretty skinny and clean this year just to try and move it forward. That may change post-election. The idea was to get it done originally prior to the election, just so that it wasn't a sticking point. But with the CR, that's sort of changing everything. If anyone has any questions for me, I'll stay on the line. Otherwise, I will give it back over to you all. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Kaya. I'm going to just comment kind of briefly while my printer goes off here in my background that I really want to thank Wes and the company back at headquarters international. I mean, we get to see occasional stuff that you send out regarding your meetings with SecDef and SecDef and you know the great work you guys are doing on our behalf out here. We truly appreciate. And every time you send that stuff to me, I usually forward it to this group. So I'm, you know, like I said, we watch that very, very closely. Thanks.
Great. One quick thing, Jim, I forgot to cover two topics, and I'll do it very, very quickly. We continue to track on the regulatory side the cybersecurity maturity model certification. I know this is on your agenda later. I will say that there's been a lot of, I will call it turbulence regarding CMMC and the CMMC accreditation body, AB. There have been many resignations and or kicking off of that body that have happened. There's also, they went from having a draft rule to now what's going to be an interim rule that's going to be released imminently on CMMC AB. So it is time to strap in for a bit of, as I say, turbulence on CMMC as we go forward. It looks like right now, because there's not the certifiers in place, et cetera, that there may be some self-certification aspects of this, but there's, I know it's on your agenda, but I just want you to know that we continue to track this and be heavily engaged in all things CMMC. And I will say that NDIA's official position, and I make sure that I tell everybody I can about this, that we are constructively supportive, i.e. we believe that the defense industrial base needs to have secure networks. We need to protect CUI, et cetera. We need to make sure that it's done with an effective policy that it also recognizes that this is an expense to industry, and that expense needs to eventually make it into be an allowable cost. The other thing is Section 889. For those of you that are not tracking Section 889 Part B, this is about Huawei ZTE equipment in our supply chains. And that if you do have that, then or you use it, which has still not been defined what word use means in your carrying out of government contracts, that you cannot perform contracting operations with the federal government. Right now, there is a waiver, DoD waiver in place for this until the 30th of September. We do not know whether that's going to be extended. There is a lot of rumors going around that senior levels in the Pentagon are asking the Director of National Intelligence to give another waiver. We continue to push through a suspension of that, of Section 889, until a better policy or an amendment to the legislation, et cetera, can be put in place that gets to the spirit of 889, but is more implementable than the current interim rule that we, by the way, filed last week our comments on, and those comments were, I will say, extensive. I think they're sitting on our website. If they're not, if you want to know what NDIA's comments are, we'll be happy to send them to you. So sorry for taking up more time, but I just wanted to make sure I covered those two topics. Over.
Yeah, one additional question, Wes and Kaya, as would you guys be able to stick it out long enough to join in a breakout session at the end of this and maybe entertain one-on-ones or gang attack?
When is the end?
Oh, probably
about an hour. Less than an hour.
Less than an hour.
Yeah, I'll be on.
Okay.
I will as well.
We'll plan on having you two guys in a breakout session at the end of this so folks can opt to join in with you there. I have not yet seen Ken Garber, and I don't see either Terry McKerney or Frank Muller, but I think I can, speak a little bit for them about our virtual Gold Coast. And as you pointed out, Wes, that sort of got dropped in our lap just a couple of months before. And we went to school on some of the things that National has done to do virtual conferences. And, I think we basically pulled a winner out of our hat there. We had over 1,000 people. The site is still up and active. So if you were a participant in Gold Coast, you can still go in there and sniff around and see things that are there. And it'll be up for a whole year afterwards. I hope next year is the real conference, but we certainly learned a lot about, virtual platforms and very, very quickly, to which I give great credit to Terry McKerney, who kind of led the virtual push. And, of course, Frank was running the entire event. And, it's like they used to say about naval aviation, any landing you can walk away from is a good one. And if you can fly the plane again, it was a great one. So, bottom line is well done to those folks. Next item on the agenda is Tony Lopez and Chris Newborn from DAU. Tony, I'm going to just turn it over to you and let you introduce your subject, and then Chris.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Just want to give a quick update on the Cyber Labs. We've reported on the Cyber Labs before. Since that time, if you recall, for those of you that were at some of the past meetings, we had done 2 cohorts in the classroom. Since that time, we were contacted by El Camino College, and we were asked to modify the curriculum, and put together an online curriculum, which we have done. We actually did another cohort online, and it went really, really well. We're working now with El Camino College, hopefully to do another one between, I'd say, late October, November timeframe. We'll be sending out notification as we're looking for folks that might be interested in participating in the labs. One other element that we're looking at is looking at a way of possibly monetizing it and using the employment training panel support from the state of California with California companies. So please keep your eyes out for the announcement. We hope that we'll be sending out something in the next few weeks. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Chris Newborn, who's going to give an update on CMMC from a DAU perspective. Chris, are you there? You're muted. Chris, you're muted.
Well, if we can't get Chris unmuted, I guess I'm going to have to sing.
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go. Yeah.
Okay,
and-
can you hear me now? Okay. I couldn't go through my work computer. We've had so many issues in regards to Zoom, and I'm going through my personal computer. So it took me about 20 minutes to hook into you all. Anyway, that was a great, I'm going to just talk to one slide, and I'm going to share my screen if I can do that in regards to the CMMC. And I read a little article yesterday in regards to what, and I forgot what Wes was talking about concerning the DFAR rules. And the statement there was exactly correct of what he said. They are now going to an interim. Apparently, they have completed their internal, you want to say, review, and I guess it's going to be handed over for a public review or a public announcement next month. They are looking at trying to get this DFAR's rulemaking done by the end of the year. But I, as a concerned citizen on the acquisition workforce, is really concerned because a lot of the components are not ready yet. And let me share my screen. Host disabled participant. Okay, can you allow me to share my screen, because right now I can't share it.
Absolutely. Let me just do that. And I'm sorry, I would have done that sooner if somebody else had wanted to share it sooner. Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. This is I am normally mostly mute challenged, as we call it.
You're on. So go ahead.
Okay. Okay, though. Can you see it now?
Now we can.
Okay, let me get it. Okay, here we go. So again, my name is Chris Newber. I work for Defense Acquisition University, and I've been giving a host of CMMC DFAR's webcast since May, and basically I've been told that I am a outspoken person, but my concern is making sure that we take the existing policy and new policy to correctly implement and execute the policy. So this one slide here, I think is a key thing in regards to some of the things that are really great takeaways. Number one, in regards to when you start taking a look at the CMMC, and OSD is really pushing the acquisition workforce to put this into contracts right away. They have made a statement, and whether they're right or wrong or anything like that, but they're saying they're going to wait until the DFAR's rulemaking process is over. Apparently, this was put into STARS 3 contract of CMMC requirement, even though they have very little support to support that contract. So let me go in there. One of the questions I have, and I have not gotten any answers at all, and I know that you've submitted several, NDIA has submitted several papers, and there has not been any response at all. But the first bullet is, it says, is the 21, the FAR 21, as well as the DFAR 7012 full language required, going to be required in the contract, and what are the constructs that are going to be required? Because right now, the DFAR clause has 3 requirements in regards to adequate security. It has a requirement in regards to incident reporting, and then it has the requirement of the flow down. And right now, I have not had any access at all in regards to, under the rulemaking process, what's going to happen, whether the NIST 800-171 and the NIST requirement documents are still going to be valid, or that the CMMC in regards to the processes and practices are actually going to replace the NIST guidelines. We have no idea at all. From what we've been told, and I think it was an accident, is that OSD in the new rulemaking is basically going to replace the NIST guidance, and they're strictly going to be utilizing the practices and processes that are identified in the CMMC. The second thing is that in the level certification, you have level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. For the lowest requirement, which is the level 1 that's supposed to protect federal contract information, that is basically your FAR 52.204-21. The big change there from the old policy and the new policy that really affects probably 99% of the contractors that are dealing with DoD right now. There is going to be a cost associated with that, whereas before there was no cost at all. So this gets into the allocable, reasonable, and allowable cost. And right now, the CMMC AB, which was, again, stated before, is going through some turbulence. I have been in contact with Regan, I forgot his last name. He is responsible for training the assessors, and fingers crossed, he said that he was going to start including me into his working group, as well as review the training material. So that would be one thing that once I get that, I will definitely want to share that, because I believe that we need to incorporate this into the different cohorts that we're doing to train the small businesses. So again, this is super, super important to hopefully I can get at least a look on the other side of the wall, so we can start preparing the small businesses, because my fear is that if they don't get the training right now and they have an assessor come in and actually do the assessment, the first thing is there has not been anything that's been identified in regards to what the assessor is going to be requiring in regards to the artifacts or documents to provide the proof of compliance. Again, when you look at the level 1 small business or contractors, they're not used to actually going through a full audit or assessments. Most of the time, they rely on a third-party provider to provide that particular information, and thereby, when the assessors start doing their assessing, it's going to take a substantial amount of time to at least go through something if there's any documentation that's available. And because of that, we have projected that basically those assessors are going to be charging anywhere up to about $300 an hour. So before, if you hear OSD leadership saying that it's going to cost about $5,000 to complete a level 1 certification, we have estimated that it's going to cost anywhere between $15,000 to $30,000 to do an assessment. And for a small business to do that, that's basically going to break them. So again, this is going to be a key thing to get access to what the assessors actually being trained and what they're going to be requiring when they do their assessment.
May I speak?
Yes, go ahead. Sorry.
This is Don Culp. I apologize for interrupting. I just recently completed the RP portion of the CMMC-AB, and they have a slide out there that show that in fiscal year 21, there will be 15 contracts that will be awarded, and 1,500 contractors and subcontractors will have to go through the level 1 through 5. And they've outlined the numbers that they plan on trying to attain, and they convey that there will be provisional assessments up until they get everybody on board and running. So they are moving out on this.
Yeah, I hear the numbers, and that is based on some I would say 50-50% assumptions. I always tell people that I have some great land to sell you underneath the Coronado Bridge.
You bet.
So what they're banking on is they're taking a look at these large primes and subs, and they're hoping that they're going to be able to push that down through the manufacturer and vendors, and they're going to call that in regards to success. Again, you and I, so I'm a cyber person as well as I'm an acquisition person. And to say, number one, that they're going to be able to train that many people and have a consistent process and procedure, as well as being able to train that many assessors, they're still going through the training session.
I would agree.
And and I know that it's at least going to take about 6 to 9 months to even come up with the concepts and the constructs that these particular entities are going to be doing to standardize their assessment. as well as you know, there are different networks out there all over the place in regards to a flat network, a Purdue network, and an isolated network, as well as the company sizes are completely different between large, medium, and small, and in regards to their competency. So you have all these factors involved, and this is what DCMA went through, and they were trying to provide that lessons learned, and the DIPCAP is going through that right now. So these particular companies that are being trained and everything, excuse me, they are starting out at ground zero.
Yeah. Yeah, they're saying that by contract award, you'll have to have your certification level for that contract achieved at contract award.
Yes, that's what I'm pushing. And the reason why I'm pushing that, and I know OSD will not support that, nor will they deny it, is that you have to have that in place in order for the government to actually be able to come up with a cost. Again, OSD leadership just stated that, oh, there's a possibility that you don't have to have your certification, you don't have to worry about that being certified until a time of award. That's going to be very challenging, because the main thing that the government has to do is they have to look at the cost to see if it's allocable, allowable, and reasonable. And if the certification is not completed, that's very hard to do that.
Yep.
You understand what I'm saying?
I do.
So again, there's a disconnect in regards to what leadership wants to do and what actually has to be done. And I'm sorry, if there is an OSD person on this enough, I guess I will be reported, and I guess I will be disciplined in the next few days, because every time I make a statement that is reasonable and logical and everything, I get disciplined.
Yeah, I think it's still very fluid, though. Yeah, I would tend to agree with your conversation. I know the training material was not quite where I think it should be, but it was reputable.
Yeah, but again, it's you know, my strategy and my thing is to state, of course, in regards to the DFAR clause. That is the current policy, and we have to stay on track. We have to understand in regards to utilizing the NIST requirements.
Yeah, they're based on all that, though. I mean, if you look at the model at 1.02, and you go through that model, they're basing it all back to the NIST and the DFARS, and so everything's linked back to all of those requirements.
No, I understand that, but the messaging is CMMC, CMMC, CMMC. That is the incorrect messaging. The messaging should be the DFARS in regards to the current requirements. We've had so many companies that are now claiming themselves as being CMMC level 3, CMMC level 4 and 5.
Yeah, it can't be. Yeah.
Yeah, Chris, can you just move on, and we'll have you available in a breakout session afterwards for individual conversations.
But you know, me finishing up, really the bottom line is that at the moment, the process for CMMC, we really don't understand and know the process yet. And that's the CMMC certification process, the timeline in regards to how long it's going to take to get a level 1, 2, or 3 completed, and the cost for the CMMC. So with those 3 things right there, it is very, very challenging, and it's going to be difficult in regards to having the government put CMMC in the contract and not having those particular unknowns. And this is something that I'm requesting the industry. You need to come back when they do the RFI or the RFP. I mean, you need to really come back and identify those particular things.
Excellent.
With that, I'm done.
It's one of those things that I always mention when I get a chance to talk to anybody like Wes Hallman or yourself. You know, I love the comments that it's now allocable, you know, allowable and reasonable. But when you're a 1, 2, 3 person company, regardless of how allowable and allocable it is, it's still a lot of money to come up with. And so this is something we have to work our way through. Next item on the agenda.
If I can just take a moment, I'm going to throw up my guidelines and just let people remember to use the chat. There we go. Let's see if I can get that up. There we go. I did make a few little rules. We just moved so quickly at the beginning that I didn't get a chance. But do mute your microphone, but I've been able to jump around and unmute. But you can chat your contact information. I know we're not going to do the all around, but just do that in between the speakers. And if you have a question, please use the chat so that the presenter will see your question and they can control when the interjection occurs. And then if I couldn't, I think I've almost tried to identify everybody that's on the phone with us, but we haven't had any problems yet. So let me go back to that. Go ahead, Joe.
Good job, Ray. And oh, by the way, just a repeat that Ray is recording this, and we'll be putting out minutes following this. Now, I had planned following Chris and Tony to have Richard Jones speak from the Navwar acquisition side, and I don't believe he was able to make this due to another conference. Hearing nothing out of the...
Actually, Jim, I did make it on the line.
Okay. Do you have anything to add there, Richard?
Well, no, I think Chris will. Just a couple of quick things. Chris really covered this exactly the way I would have said it as well, that the CMMC, while we expect things to be coming, that we really, the messaging is stay on course with the existing requirements, DFARS clause, the NIST 800-171. And along those lines, the thing I always want to mention is that we want companies to be using the NIST 800-171 DoD assessment methodology, that specific methodology that OSD published, to do the basic assessment, the self-assessment using that methodology and get that score. And because I expect that there will be, I don't expect that I don't expect the methodology to disappear anytime soon, even with, so we've got the CMMC turn, and I expect that methodology to continue for a while as a tool to help us get companies farther along in compliance with the 171, and then being able to eventually get to those steps of CMMC certification. So I highly recommend doing that basic assessment. That's the self-assessment, using the assessment method, DoD assessment methodology. And what I was going to say is I expect that there may be some requirement for that to happen in the future, near future here, where then not only are you doing it for your own information, but that you'll be entering that information into the SPURS database as a baseline for then the higher confidence reviews with the government. So that's all I wanted to add.
Wonderful. Next item on the list, I got Dan DeConzos, who is the Navwar Director for Small Business. Dan?
Hey, Jim, thanks. Good to see you again. Let's see, not much to put out this time. I did send Jim over an email this morning that had a number of links on there. These links go to a new database collection form that we created to try to make sure that we're enhancing the database of small business firms that we're dealing with at the command. So I believe, Jim, you circulated that this morning, did you not?
I did, and I got one piece of feedback from somebody who said the long-range forecast was passworded.
Passworded, okay, yeah. So seems to be some kind of a migration issue when we put that thing up on the website in Excel. So if you need the website or if you need the long range forecast, just send me an email. I'll be happy to send you a copy of it. And that way we can bypass the password issue. We found out though it's hit or miss. So we're still working on trying to figure out what's going on that when we come up with the new long range forecast, which is scheduled to come out in November. Okay. So, so on these links that I sent you, we've also got one for our outward-facing small business page, which gives you a lot of information. We've updated our fact sheet, so you get some updated information there as well. Let's see. Just a note that NSWC Corona is going to be having their industry day on 14 October from 8:30 to 12:30. Just wanted to put that information out to everybody. I'm not sure if their DSB up there is getting the word out, so I wanted to make sure we put that out here if you guys are interested. I think you go on the rccd.pac.com, the Riverside City College District Procurement Technical Assistance Center has, I think they're the ones that are going to be running this program for them. Navor OSBP will be participating in the 28th October NDIA Fall Forum. I think that's going to be a good event. So it looks like we've got about a half hour. I'm rallying the troops from Lant and Pat to see if we can get them to participate a little bit on that one as well, to get out some latest information. And by that time, we should have all of our end of year numbers, Jim. So that should be a good event. Also, one of the things that we're looking for in my office is had a meeting this morning with the Navy OSBP at the council meeting. And I guess Secretary Gertz and Mr. Jimmy Smith, the Dawn director, are looking for some good news stories to share from FY20. So we've certainly had our share of ups and downs during this year. I know I would love to hear some good news stories, and I'm sure the rest of you would like to hear them as well. So if you have anything you'd like to share, any major accomplishments this year, send it my way. Just keep it, a couple lines just to let me know what happened. If it was a major accomplishment in getting a new contract, something that may have previously been unrestricted and you were able to maneuver into it being set aside, something like that. That'd be great information. I know that Secretary Gertz and Mr. Smith would be pleased to have that information at their fingertips for these events. Another thing that's going to be happening here soon is the Navy OSBP is ramping up to begin a SBIR virtual roadshow. So, I know we've had a couple of projects on our plate earlier this year with a couple of companies on the Mentor Protege program, but they're going to be doing a SBIR roadshow to kind of educate everybody, all the Syscoms, on what SBIR is, what it does, what are some of the benefits to it, and how to get involved in it. So I think it's going to be a great program that they're going to be launching hopefully within the next couple of weeks. And what we'd like to do is maybe partner up with OSBP to see if we can't put that on our virtual webinar and get everybody else involved as well if you guys are interested. Outside of that, Jim, I really don't have anything else to add. That's all I have. Over.
Okay, well, thank you. And just to comment, I forwarded, when he said, when Dan said that Jim forwarded it, I ended up sending it out to my small business distribution list. And I guess most of you guys are probably already on there, but if anybody is not, please shoot me an email and I will be happy to add you to that list where I send out current things about either small business or acquisition type events.
That's great, Jim. I appreciate it. Thanks.
And I also on the agenda had Mary Lake for Niwik PAC. Mary, do you have anything to add into this?
Just a couple things. Just a reminder that the women-owned and economically disadvantaged women-owned small business certification requirements go into effect October 15th. So you need to go through that process. Otherwise, you will not be certified to participate in the Women-Owned Small Business Program. Another update to the Federal Register has to do with the Buy American Act. This was posted on September 14th. So it increases the domestic content requirements and the price preference under the Buy American Act. And it also increases the percentage for, I think it's iron and steel products. So if that impacts you, you should take a look at the proposed rule. Comments are due on that by November 13th. And just for the SBIR program, there was also an advance notice of proposed rulemaking that was published in the Federal Register on October 31st. Comments are due by October 30th. This has to do with the DFARS implementation on the data rights portion of the SBIR and STTR program policy directives. And that was all I had.
Okay, wonderful. There was a couple of questions while that was going on. A couple of folks asked about Dan DeConzo's email, and it's Daniel, D-A-N-I-E-L .DeConzo, D-E-C-O-N-Z-O at Navy.mil, and Lakes is Mary.Lake at Navy.mil.
You got it, Jim.
Okay. Next item on a thing is Small Business Forum. The next one, we had two really great ones here with General Atomics and Booz Allen Hamilton. I've got one I'm in the works now with that probably should take place in the next month or two. I'm not yet ready to make an announcement, but those are really great events where I get the host to really talk about, you know, their needs and or requirements for small business primes and or subs. And then we have some discussion of importance to small business, usually an educational piece. It's always been a good event, and I'm looking forward to the next one. I did have UCSD on the agenda, Karen Jensen for the Accelerator program. I don't see them in the crowd. I'll be sending out more info on that. Basically, UCSD has gotten funding to create an accelerator program to help small businesses grow big. Our fall conference, which I think is one of the, well, obviously I'd say it's a great one, but Gold Coast is obviously my favorite. It's been for a while, but the fall conference is just an excellent event. I don't see Tammy Sanchez here, but every year our local chapter brings together NAVWAR and NIWC PAC, PMWs and our portfolio managers who really go into great detail about exactly what their requirements are, what their mission responsibilities are, and very specifically what contracts they have coming up. And it's a great way of getting some insight. You know, as a frequent incumbent there, you always used to get really nervous when they got up and started talking about your contract and how that's going to be coming up for rebid in the next X amount of time, because it's great information, especially if you're trying to learn what's going on there and whether or not you really want to team up or put in a bid. And again, that will very likely be a virtual type event for this particular year. I have not seen any more questions raised on the chat room. I did put out the email addresses of those folks. Right now we have Chris Newborn and Wes Hallman, Kim Mattery, and Dan DeConzo and Mary Lake scheduled for breakouts that the Puppet Meister here will send you off to pretty effectively. Other than that, the next meeting I'll probably try and do sometime around maybe the next luncheon. Sometime too many online meetings in one day tends to get, kind of burdensome. So I'll figure out a way to do that. Again, this will, be available. We'll have minutes, and of course the recording is available. I want to thank again Ray Mobley for being our puppet meister and setting this thing up. So these are the breakout rooms that will be going, and I'm not sure how Ray is going to push you in there, and I will kind of turn it back over to him to orchestrate the breakouts. Ray.
Oh, I just want to double check that Tammy Sanchez is not present. If you're on the phone, you might need to press *6 to unmute. Otherwise, I will just zap those two. I may shift the rooms around a little bit, but I think what we've got is 4. And oh, you're not looking at my screen. So let me change that and share with you the breakout room list. All right, I've got 4 breakout rooms, but if you have somebody here, if you have not already put your contact information in the chat, let me give you a minute to do that. And I will remind you to use those 3 dots near the chat to save the chat if there might be some contacts for follow-up. And then everybody else, I'm gonna either take it from the chat or I'm going to take it from your voice, but that's harder. And I'm going to put you in the breakout rooms as we conclude. I know a lot of people won't be able to stay, but we had pretty good activity in several rooms, and that helped us to queue up. So I will start doing that.
Okay, and while you're doing that, let me just thank everybody for tuning in and participating. As usual, I appreciate all the folks who were able to connect, NDI National. Oh, I was going to mention, because one of the people who was on the agenda was Mary Lockhart, to talk a little bit about Small Business Division, which is the NDIA national division that works with small businesses. And I routinely forward out her invitations to her meetings. There's a lot going on right now, so I know she's put that off for several weeks, but she's unable to be with us today due to some real aggressive business stuff she's got going on. And with that, I will allow the Puppet Meister to assign you all to whichever breakout rooms
Thank you.
you can head off to. Thank you guys for attending.